We see celebrities nowadays with the fame, the fortune, the flashy cars, and we, myself included, desire their life. We imagine that they have it all. But what we don't see is the struggle behind the curtains, the things that are more intimate that they've had to deal with to get to where they are. And one person who is absolutely no exception to that is Lady Gaga. So in this video, I want to go through Lady Gaga's past, her fibromyalgia, how she's dealing with all of this pain she's in constantly, and how she's come to terms with her trauma. If you don't know who I am, my name is Sarmed, and I make videos about health, celebrity health, all things related. If that's something you're into, hit the subscribe button so you can stay informed. Lady Gaga has fibromyalgia, which is a condition which causes essentially whole body pain, muscle spasms. Many people say it's psychosomatic, a diagnosis of exclusion, and some people say that that's all in your head, because there is a massive psychological element to this condition of which there is no cure. So let's take a look at how this fibromyalgia actually affects Lady Gaga, the type of pain she gets into.
It's the whole right side of my body. It's in a, I don't know, a spasm. It feels like there's a rope, like from my first toe all up my leg into my, and then around my first rib, into my shoulder, and then my neck.
As you can see, she's completely debilitated by her condition, and it's very easy for clinicians to say that it's all in your head. Some people only half believe that it's a diagnosis, but the specificity that she's pointing to the areas of pain, saying, oh, it's around my right rib, and all the way up to the top, that's real. It's real for her, and she's obviously on lots of medication, has a very good team around her that can treat her and help her recover from this. Not many people are so fortunate.
Just think about other people that have maybe something like this, that are struggling to figure out what it is, and they don't have the money to have somebody help them. I don't know what I'd fucking do if I didn't have everybody here to help me. What the hell would I do?
The good news is, at least if you're in the UK, you've got access to a whole network of systems that can provide you treatment even if you don't have the means to pay for it. That being said, not necessarily all the treatments are available in the UK that would be in the US. One thing that doesn't really happen in the UK is trigger point injections, which in her 2017 documentary Lady Gaga is pictured having. The idea behind these is that you find areas of muscle tension which are the root trigger, and they cause pain in areas which are further down. The nerves actually go down to supply, which are called the target areas. And by injecting these kind of trigger areas, you will use a local anesthetic, something like lignocaine, with a steroid, something like dipomedrone, and that will help take away the pain, at least temporarily, from that point. Other things you can do, things like massage, relaxation techniques, or dealing with the psychological component of fibromyalgia, which I alluded to earlier. So for Lady Gaga, what is that psychological component? And why is it that she has only started to come to terms with it recently? Well, it's horrible to talk about it, even for me as someone who actually hasn't been through the trauma. So, props to her for coming out in front of everyone and actually openly talking about this. But Lady Gaga says that when she was 19, she was in a room with a producer, and she'd been working on songs for a while and created some music. And the producer one day said to her, "Take off your clothes or I'm going to burn your music." And she just froze. She didn't know what to do in response to that.
And they didn't stop. They didn't stop asking me, and then I just froze and I don't even remember.
You know, what she does remember is after that being dropped off on a curb, pregnant, and she was raped, ultimately, which is horrible, horrible to hear about. For anyone, this would be an absolutely horrifying situation, and especially for someone who is a 19-year-old who hasn't had a chance to develop their self-image yet, their confidence, you know, who they are as a person. And Lady Gaga mentions that after that point, she felt that it caused her to break down as a person. She lost who she was as a person. She had a psychotic break.
You can come back from things like that, but when it hits you really hard, it can change you. I had a total psychotic break, and for a couple years I was not the same girl.
You know, essentially she had so much mental tension because of this event that she actually lost touch with reality for a while, for a few years. She says that she was locked in a room, she was crying, she was self-harming. You know, for anyone who's watching this, if you have self-harmed before or you have had thoughts of harming yourself, I would advise you get medical advice. I am sorry that some of this content does have triggering material, but it's hopefully to educate and inform and help you process some of the things that you're going through as well. So she would cut to try and, you know, manifest the mental pain that she was feeling in a physical form, try and relieve some of that mental tension which she was going through.
It's really hard for me to articulate in a way where I feel like it's safe for young people to listen or even older people to listen about why anyone would cut. I do believe that those urges for me came from a place of I need to show the hurt inside.
This is kind of an avoidance technique, a method of coping. There are many methods of coping. Some of them are active, some of them are avoidant. The active ones are things like emotion-focused coping, things like taking a bath, working on art, exercising, or problem-focused coping, like talking about the issue, making a checklist. And the issue with avoidance type coping is that you never enter the stages of grief which you need to actually come to acceptance in the end. So if you avoid actually coming to terms with the trauma and dealing with it head on, you actually never get to the acceptance stage, and it ends up being counterproductive. Avoidance type coping is helpful for, you know, if there is too much going on at that time, and actually it's so intensely painful that you need to suppress thinking about it because you just physically cannot bear to do so at that time. And sometimes it takes a bit of time to enter the right headspace to be able to go down the more productive long-term methods of coping. And so, you know, in her situation, going through such a traumatic event, you can completely understand her using that form of coping. But she does mention that actually towards her years now, she's starting to go down a more active form of coping. She said to talk about her problems, not show them.
And you know why it's not good to cut? You know why it's not good to throw yourself against the wall? You know why it's not good to self-harm? Because it makes you feel worse. You think you're gonna feel better, because you're showing somebody, hey, look, I'm in pain. It doesn't help. I always tell people, tell somebody.
That's extremely good advice, okay? Obviously you can't take all of your medical advice from a celebrity who's a musician, and I would recommend you speak to a licensed therapist or a doctor if you are struggling with some of these issues. But, obviously there is value in seeing the way that she's dealt with it and applying some of the methods that work for her to you. So one of the other things that has come through in what she said in the interviews is that her idea of working with producers now as a result of that has completely changed. And only recently has she gained the self-image after dealing with her past trauma to confidently feel as though she actually is somebody that's of value without the producer there. And that's given her power in the relationship, and that's helped her to obviously be more comfortable in her skin.
So many, I think, men in my life, in business, and also that I've dated, over the years, I just started to feel like what I was on my own wasn't good enough. I never felt comfortable enough to sing and just be this way now. To just sing or wear my hair back. I never felt pretty enough or smart enough or a good enough musician. That's the good part. The good part is that I just didn't feel good enough, and I do now.
Now, one of the things about the avoidance type coping mechanism that we mentioned before is that it can definitely make things worse. And when you have all that mental tension and it's not been dealt with, then it can manifest itself as physical pain. And as part of Lady Gaga's Born This Way tour back in 2013, because she still was dealing with all of that trauma, she actually mentions how she ended up in so much pain and then ended up with a hip injury from actually just working through the pain and just not listening to her body when it was telling her that it was time to stop. She ended up with a break in her hip and a permanent injury. You can see this performance of Scheiße, excuse my German, how much pain she was actually in when she was performing, and she was just carrying on, working through without stopping. Now, thankfully, in the middle of that tour, she actually spoke to some of her managers and said, like, okay, listen, I'm in this pain, and they cancelled the rest of the tour. And actually a few of the tours after that. So that was good. That was a kind of a waking point for her to think, right, okay, I actually do need to get myself in order. So she has dealt with a lot of this past psychological trauma, but obviously, she still has had this heartbreak, and she's had multiple different areas of pain in her life, including her father's sister, Joanne, who was the name of one of her albums, who died young because of lupus. And she does mention that all of these traumas she channels into her art to make the music that she makes.
You have to go to that broken place of your heart to write songs. I say sometimes it's like open heart surgery, making music. Every time it's invasive.
I find that very interesting and inspirational, because this is actually one of the active coping mechanisms that you can do with past trauma. And so you can almost think of her pop star career as a coping mechanism for all of the problems that she's faced in the past. I absolutely love what she's doing, that she's actually a mental health advocate for lots of her fans. Obviously some of the things she does say, I don't necessarily agree with. Like, for example, she mentions that you should go directly to a psychiatrist if you have problems with trauma, but not everybody has that facility, and general practitioners are perfectly capable of managing, depression, anxiety, and some types of trauma, just the less complex cases. You only need to be referred to a psychiatrist in certain scenarios. But on the most part, she's actually doing amazing things for people with fibromyalgia and who have experienced trauma in the past, showing them that you can overcome your trauma. And not only that, but you can also use it as of fuel to help you in, creating beautiful art, no matter what field of art that you're in. So as someone who's like very science heavy and has been for a long time in the past, like it's very interesting for me to kind of look at her and what she's done and how far she's come from being that 19-year-old girl in a horrible situation to now, being an international sensation. So I hope that you draw some inspiration from her story and those clips. I know that it could potentially be triggering for someone who is suffering from self-harm, and so if that is you, then please do seek medical advice. And for anyone else, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of Lady Gaga's journey? How has she come this far? And what do you think of her new style of music? Because she's actually changed recently into a more mature style of art and less of the kind of flashy, wearing the meat dress that she's done in the past. So I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. If you did make it this far, congratulations. You have the attention span of a genius, because not many people do these days with the advent of TikTok and all of that. So thank you for watching. I do appreciate your time. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe for more goodness, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.